Okay. Welcome everybody to the November 16th council meeting. I remind everyone that the meeting is live streamed and recorded, and it is available on the town website, or will be available on the town website at www.parrysound.ca. And I would also like to acknowledge at this time that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Prior to the open session, council met for a closed meeting, and it was moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Bachman that pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001 C25 is amended. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, contractor work on town property. F, advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, contractor work on town property. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, municipal servicing agreement, and educating or training council members, and no member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in any way that materially advances the business or decision-making of council, town's organizational structure. That meeting was held and that was carried. So, is there any prioritization of the agenda? I'm not seeing any. May I have a mover and seconder for to approve the agenda? Councillor Keith, Councillor McCann, that the council agenda for November 16th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Is anyone opposed to passing that resolution? No, then that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Councillor Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 921, the 2022 land ambulance budget. As my spouse is the Chief Operating Officer of the West Parry Sound Health Center, and the land ambulance budget is part of the overall West Parry Sound Health Center budget.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. No one else? All right. We now, ladies and gentlemen, are going to take a few minutes to hold an electronic public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment under section 34 of the Planning Act. And may I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Borneman, Councillor McCann, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of zoning amendment Z 21-13 Wabick Street, District of Parry Sound Social Services Administration Board?
Yes, Your Worship, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, posted in the paper, and it was placed on the town's website.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, could you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Yes, Your Worship. The applicant has requested to change the zoning from the property from O1 to and R1 to permit up to 90 dwelling units in a row house and apartment style, subject to the R3 zoning standards. The lands are a vacant lot on Wabick that was formerly used as a baseball diamond. They are described as part of Block MA on Plan 137.
Thank you. As this is an electronic public meeting under the Planning Act due to COVID-19, we'll call upon those in electronic attendance if they wish to comment. Please make sure that you have your screen on and that you signal the camera and or raise your hand if you wish to speak. Please keep your microphone muted until it's your turn to speak. So one of the things that I'm really hoping for in this, because it could take a long time, is that I hope that we can streamline our commentary. If those that have deputations can make them, and if someone else wants something to say, they're fully freely to do that. But if a lot of it has been already said by one person, if you could please agree to that. If you've got something new to add, then let's add that to it. But we want to make sure that the questions are all asked at that particular time, at this time, so that we are able to get the answers back to the public as possible. So at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? And if so, state your name and your address. And I have 4 individuals potentially that are listed here that could be wishing to speak. There's Rick Zanussi, DSAB Board Chair, Tammy McKenzie, DSAB CAO, Marcus Wheeler, Project Architect, and John Jackson, Planner. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I be heard? It's John here.
Yep, I can hear you.
We've got a bit of I think a bit of a team short presentation. I don't think Ms. McKenzie is going to speak, but Marcus Wheeler, Rick Zanussi, and I have a few quick words. I think we'd like to start by introducing the DSAB board member, Councillor Zanussi from the Archipelago, just to introduce the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mr. Jackson, sir. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. My name is Rick Zanussi, and I'd like to thank you for listening to our submission this evening. Along with me, in order of the presentations that we're going to go through, are Mr. Wheeler, our project architect, and John Jackson, our planner. So I'm here before you as the chair of the Parry Sound District Social Services Administration Board, or as most folks call it, the DSAB. I think I would like to explain what a DSAB is for the folks in the public, so that they can understand where we're coming from. In areas of Northern Ontario where there are no cities, regions, counties, social services are delivered by an organization called the DSAB. There are 10 DSABs that provide social services throughout Northern Ontario, from here to eternity as far as Ontario is concerned. DSABs are responsible for many social programs, including all private and public daycare, women's programs and shelters, Ontario Works and social housing, and a myriad of other responsibilities. The Parry Sound DSAB owns over 200 housing units, apartments, duplexes, and homes throughout the entire district of Parry Sound. We are also responsible by legislation for an equal amount. Ironically, it's an equal amount. There is no formula of privately held or publicly operated, held and operated apartments and homes. Our organization employs over 200 staff and is governed by a 15-member municipal board. The board is comprised of municipal councillors from the 22 municipalities within the district. Well over a decade ago, the DSAB purchased this 2.7 hectare property that fronts on Wabick Street. It was purchased from the North Bay Parry Sound District, North Bay Parry Sound School Board, as it was redundant to their needs. I am sure that you all know where the 2 daycare centers are, the 2 daycare buildings on Wabick Street. This property extends from behind that building, those buildings, over towards the bay. We, as an organization, as a board, have thought long and hard about what to do with this property, and a myriad of ideas over the years. However, with the ever-increasing need for social housing, affordable housing, we are embarking on a development of the property, and that's why we're here this evening. We have a preliminary plan, which Marcus will get into shortly. for developing the property, including a fairly substantial green space. We have no firm plans, folks, to do this development. We are, as many organizations are, federally, municipally, or provincially funded, extremely limited in what we can do with the limited funding. However, it's our intent that some sort of affordable housing and seniors housing will be part of this development, whether we do it or we do it in harmony with a private developer. So that being said, I would now, if I could, like to have Marcus take over and give you folks an idea of what at least our preliminary plans are. Thank you for your audience, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Your Worship and Council, for allowing me to speak. I'm not sure if you or if the design was circulated or not, but if you wanted to bring that up instead of looking at me, that would be fine with me. But I would like to, just describe the background as well as the intent behind the property. So around 2017, the DSAB approached me with, they were reviewing various options for development of social and affordable housing within the district. And there was some concerns about condition, quality, and availability of seniors housing and affordable housing directly in the town as well. So the available property on Waubee Street was considered, and we did a feasibility study to assess the potential to develop the site, and along with costs and making sure that the mandates of the DSAB to reach affordable housing could be met. So we went through a series of designs and to see what would be suitable there, and we came up with the capabilities of the housing was about 80 to 90 units in a mix of townhouses and apartments, and with a potential to for a daycare or something to relate and cooperate with the existing neighboring daycare. So we wanted to develop this design purely as a litmus test, like a feasibility study, to see what the challenges were of the site. And what we came up with was we demanded a bit of a higher density to sustain the amount of cost of wood to bring in site services and things like that. So we came up with a number that was based on budgets as well as what would be suitable given the size of the site, the woodlands, and the neighboring properties as well. So the design intends to maintain a large portion of the woodlands and attempts to respect the backyard setbacks for spatial comfort with the neighborhood. So again, this design is really a prototypical design. It is a concept, and we're not, the DSAB has no current plans to develop this site right now, but it is a potential development that we'd like to see the planning approvals for. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. And John, if you'd like to carry on.
Yes, thank you. I didn't see the plan get up on the screen. I wonder, Your Worship, if Rebecca or Forrest could put it on the screen?
So Forrest or Rebecca, do you have it handy that you can put it up on the screen?
Was there a submission? I mean, I don't have the plan. I didn't have an advance notice that there was a plan to be screen shared. I might check in our files. Is it the map with showing the locations of, is the plan?
Yeah, could you allow?
Right, let me check, and I may flip that to Forrest and see if we can get that up. Thanks.
Possibly, Rebecca, could you allow Marcus to share his screen to put that plan up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, all members can screen share. That is turned on.
So maybe Marcus, you could just put it up there. Just, I'm sure that most have seen it, but it's helpful to have this. There we go. And I'm not sure, Marcus, if you could just spend 25 words or less, just sort of repeating the concept here. You might be muted.
Yep, he's muted.
Thank you. So Wabick Street is at the top of the page here, and the access that comes into the site is the same access as what currently exists. The parking lot in the middle, which is surrounded by some row housing on each side, and an apartment complex which sort of bridges between the plateau where the ball field currently is and the hill that would be behind it. And it would sort of be a retaining wall to keep this all in, actually. And then the rest of it down here currently is, we thought of it as a walking trail or something like that, but it is not intended to be any developed at all. But so this design intends to keep the low density on the outside and the higher density in the middle, to try and balance the neighborhood's demands with the need for us to be denser in our development.
Thanks, Marcus. Very much appreciated. So it's John Jackson here, Council and members of the public. I was the planner assisting DSAB with its application, and David Thompson described it fairly accurately. We're looking at a hybrid zoning to change the zoning of the property now that's got a number of different zones on it, including the two buildings associated with the daycare that are zoned institutional or residential in some cases. So we're trying to consolidate the zoning to reflect what would be a development ready kind of circumstance, so that it could go forward as a medium density housing development. And I think, well, the DSAB group would have liked to have been able to put forward the development to respond to what we all know to be an absolute necessity in terms of providing housing in the community. I think that the reality of the economic world in their perspective is that they might not be a partner, they may be a partner, but it's likely something that they would put forward once the development ready zoning is in place as a package for a private entrepreneur to come forward to develop the medium density housing development. The process that we followed was as if the prototype development that Marcus developed was one that essentially needed to have all its due diligence undertaken, so that what was done was the kinds of things that you would do to support a development anywhere on any property in any context. And those included the plans that Marcus put together. Engineers were retained to look at the feasibility and some preliminary costing in terms of servicing, which are fundamentally important in our difficult, challenging terrain of the town. We also had environmental professionals retained to look at any of the natural heritage features that might come forward, and those were done with recommendations about how to mediate issues that they found with respect to the property. The property had undertaken, at least we had undertaken a traffic impact study where we know that that's always going to be a concern with development, and that study had confirmed that there is no outstanding problem, that the ability of the network of roads at the bottom end of Wabick Street is capable of accommodating the proposed 90 units. with no material change and considerable capacity available. We met with planning staff to pre-consult, go over the issues. We prepared the necessary evaluations in terms of the planning framework. We looked at the growth plan of Northern Ontario, the provincial policy statements. We were able to satisfy ourselves that all of those critical policy requirements were met. And it's clear that the need for housing is what surfaces as kind of the priority in such a project where we know that we're in almost crisis mode in this province and in this country, if not beyond, for having places for people to live. So what we came up with after synthesizing all this was not the highest or most dense use of the property. I think that we've hit what I would call a fairly middle ground. The municipality has policies that allow housing developments, for example, to achieve densities of upwards of around 75 units per hectare. We're 2.7 hectares, but we have not attempted to max it out. We've attempted to create what I'd call a pretty good balance in terms of what's being proposed here. It's probably somewhere less than half of what one might normally expect, but I think it's part of a threshold to meet the socioeconomic realities. We know there's going to be a lot of cost in servicing this property. So you have to reach that tipping point for some viability. So it'll take some time. We will be happy to respond to any questions that council may have, or its advisors, or the public for that matter. So we're looking for eventually some positive support for this project, Your Worship, and we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. That's everything from your team?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Good. Thank you. At this time, then I'll ask again, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, please state your name and your address. I will ask once more to make sure. Is there anyone else at this time that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? No? Okay. We'll move on to those that wish to speak in opposition of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Again, you'll please identify yourself by name and give your address. And the known individuals that we have to speak are Alex Pritchard and Eric Hansman. So I will take Alex first, if Alex is here, and then Eric.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm just getting my presentation started here. Just one moment.
Okay, all right.
Sorry. Here we go. So hi, everybody. My name's Alex. Fun fact about me, I'm obsessed with this town. I'm obsessed with child development, and I'm obsessed with mental health. So all of these things just kind of combined when this was announced for my backyard. And I'm also the chair of what we are calling the Wabic Appeal Group, where we are coming together to express our opposition to the rezoning of this land, not to the actual development of this land. It is very clear that the potential to make this a high density residential unit is the clear intention of this application. And in so doing, it opens up future development to the forested area that right now is being promised to us with this development. But I have seen past development proposals that were keen to make it a Prospect Drive entrance and do a high rise into the forested area. So that would be something that we would really want to consider before we go forward rezoning this piece of land. So this is my presentation based on surveys that I completed with 45 local residents. And it's called Preserving Our Community During Unprecedented Growth. So, so this is why 90% of respondents agree that the proposal represents a substantial lack of planning and considerations. So in this new era, how will we continue to attract young families into the urban center? What are our concerns? Example, traffic, lack of consultation, adherence to the official plan, our present and future culture. Are our visions aligned with councils and administrations of this town? And if so, where are we going to go if we are diverging? So the secret's out. 38.64% of respondents moved here in the last 0 to 3 years, and 54% in the last 7 years. Our newcomers say that they moved here for the same reason that we are people that have lived here for 8+ years. That's our undeveloped open space, bylaw zoning, for which we all researched before moving into the area, and our small town culture. So what brought our young families here? Let's look to Bobby, our local god. He spoke in his book about the amazing experience that children get from having what we call freedom encounters. So he was speaking to the bonuses of living in a town where you get together and raise a softball team and play sports for the whole afternoon. That's why we came back. So our beloved Bobby Orr understood why he became a champion. So let's create more. So there's 2 concepts that are fundamental to understanding and exploring a more child-friendly approach to cities: everyday freedoms and children's infrastructure. Everyday freedoms, the concept of everyday freedoms combines the ability to play and socialize with high levels of independent mobility. I'm wondering if this development would foster this in any way, especially with the racetrack that is Warwick Street at this particular time. So, sorry, our town's official plan says that recreational resources of the town are integral components of the town and quality of life in Parry Sound. So do we have a plan to reintegrate? Sorry, everybody. Do we have a plan to reintegrate open space and urban forest if we develop this land? What open spaces and recreation facilities are left to protect besides the overly manicured and hard to access from this location in town's properties? So it's a 38-minute walk to the William Street Park, and the future is unknown as the Salt Dock Trail is privately owned. The lower trail is future unknown. The town's beaches, which I love and are the tourist heart of our town, they are shared with the rest of the province for the summertime. And in the wintertime, they're actually quite inhospitable to play with children. The future is also unknown about what the town plans to do with the property that they own at the fitness trail near the Stockey Center. So these are concerns, and these are real valid concerns that the local residents have, because they are seeing all open space be sold off and developed without any consultation or consideration for the future of our town. So overall, how much you like living in our neighborhood? So 80+% agreed that they like living in it a great deal, and 20% a lot. That's like an extremely happy neighborhood. How strong is the sense of community in your neighborhood? Extremely strong, 50% and more. Very strong, almost 30%, somewhat strong. So the official plan supports this distinct character, and one can only hope that decision makers understand how well this neighborhood is functioning in its current state, despite daily stunt driving, and relish in it as a source of pride. Parry Sound is the meeting place for the gateway for the Georgian Bay area and the Parry Sound district. It is a community of distinct neighborhoods created as a result of topography and prior infrastructure decisions, particularly related to railroads and road systems. So we want to know how you're going to protect the character if you move from R1 and OP to predominantly R3 in a predominantly R1 neighborhood, because the clear intent is to make an R3 proposal once it's all subjugated under R2. Can you understand why reading the likelihood of objection is high, but planning instruments and provincial policy statements will likely prevail? Panicked long-term and newly integrated residents. It feels as though our opposition is a mere hiccup. The problem is that we see it is the long-term character and sustainability of the culture and identity of this neighborhood and Parry Sound as a whole. So why are people thinking about moving? So 31% of people said that they were thinking of moving due to this proposed development. I did a little word map here. It looks like we're pretty upset about traffic, and we're also pretty upset about our green spaces. So that is not a small amount of people just thinking about packing up and leaving. I know that I'm personally consulting a realtor and architects for how I can make my house into a multi-dwelling unit while I go to live rural. So what would they have moved here if it was a transparent consideration? Some people said yes, but most people, 70% said they would have chosen to live rural, and 7% said they would have chosen to live in a greater urban development. So why would we live in Parry Sound if we can go to a city where we can give our kids dance classes and sushi, or live rurally where we can give them open space if we live in a town that offers neither of those perks? So would the current proposal to amend the zoning bylaw on Wabick Street have impacted your decision to live on Wabick Street? This is especially true for our newbies, the ones that we've been trying to attract to this town for decades. It's like almost everybody would have moved rurally or moved to an urban development. So I just want that to sink in because of the character of the neighborhood and how much we're trying to protect that. So what are your primary concerns regarding the zoning amendment? Increased traffic. It's good to say that you have a 2015 traffic report that doesn't consider the new infrastructures or the new super school that will be up the street. However, our current traffic issues are not being addressed, and we've recently been we've been told that we can have a new traffic report for existing traffic issues, but that doesn't say how we're going to accommodate 80 plus units, and especially when it becomes R3 with the potential to go even greater to 75 units per hectare. So increased neighborhood noise, environmental degradation, lack of open space, lack of sidewalks, wastewater management, tax implications, skepticism that the town will address all of our concerns before moving forward, and concerning that this will bring on more development for our shoreline. So pedestrian access will be maintained and improved, and active transportation will be encouraged. Will there be an updated traffic impact study to assess if this development is appropriate? Does it consider pedestrian and active transportation access first and foremost? Does the town understand the liability of not acting quickly on this? Are we willing to think outside the box for traffic calming, e.g. raised crossings, pedestrian islands, extended curbs, green space curbs with trees known to reduce speeding and increase house values and prevent storm runoff? Can the public vote on who we contract for the traffic impact study and our areas of concern? The importance and uniqueness of the East, this is just speaking to the UNESCO Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve and how we chose to live on basically highly revered international jewel. So we want to know if there's going to be an updated environmental impact study. I recently saw a bald eagle in the area. So will the public have a say who performs the study? And if not, will there be opportunity for them to hire their own firm and consultant to perform a third-party peer review of the environmental impact study? Design guidelines are increasingly being used to ensure that development contributes to well-being of residents, improve the visual and aesthetic standards of development, and enhance the positive aspects of community character. Such guidelines provide direction for both the public and private sectors when preparing development plans or public works improvements. What about the existing issues with sewage in the neighborhood caused by poor planning of new developments? How will we protect Warwick Street from similar issues? Residential intensification and infilling will be encouraged within existing residential neighborhoods as a means of providing affordable housing alternatives. Intensification initiatives may include the provision of accessory units and the use of innovative lot configurations that would allow additional lots to be created in established areas. Where is the promotion and support for this endeavor? Why can't we get the ease of review and consultation like this endeavor? And that actually makes more sense in terms of long-term sustainability over a big condo that we understand that it might not go to social housing, that it could go to private. We are opposed to the zoning amendment first and foremost, as it sets a precedent as well for residential single dwelling households, neighborhoods that, you know, my mom could sell her house on Sunset and then we have an R3 in the middle of town. So this is against a precedent being set for R1 residential being made to R3. So the amendment change will change. So this is the petition for which there were 90 signatures in hard copy and there were 74 signatures online, which I'm being told is not accepted by the town of Parry Sound, but I will be sure to address this as best as possible to be sure that those 74 voices are heard, because even though it might not be officially, I have literally held people while they've cried about this development and the lack of consultation and the lack of consideration for current issues that are that are happening in real time that have many residents beyond settlement. Like they're just, I had one woman let me know she's only been sleeping about an hour a night. I have a lot of upset people that have been speaking to me about this development. And first and foremost, it's against the rezoning, not the actual development. Literally, 90% of respondents said that they would listen to the proposal if all of their concerns were addressed adequately. Furthermore, this is a sign of this is the plan. So this is going to be, the move is to go to R2 residential and saying from there it will be easy to consolidate into R3. So the question is can we do R2 with the easy consolidation into R3? And what's to stop the wooded area to be developed in the future? So basically what we're asking for is for public consideration and our reasons that we moved here, which is to give our children excellent childhoods, ones that allow independent play, ones that allow freedom movements, and ones that consider how we are going to develop, because we all understand that we need to develop. We all understand the geographical constraints on our development. But if we're moving towards high density residential, does it not make sense to protect every last piece of green space we have left? We are in a unique position right now where we are growing, and it's what we've always wanted. However, if we are going towards a green model, which is to do high density living, you have to counterbalance that with access to green space and open space and recreational facilities. The town beach is an amazing place to be, top one reason why I moved home. However, in the summertime, especially during COVID time, it's not exactly the most pampering place to be. And we actually don't have that much green space on this end of town. And if we are going high density in this area, how are we going to counterbalance that with open space? And these are all things that I hope town council is listening to, because as an election is coming up, our values really need to be heard, and we really need to know that you're understanding why we have so many concerns and why we want to protect every source of open space that we have left in this town. I could speak to all of the benefits of childhood mental health and addictions, and how green space and independent play and exploration is a primary protective factor. We already have a daycare here. Why not make it like a trauma center where we can treat intergenerational trauma, and we have a core-based forest school curriculum, and we increase spaces so that people aren't stressed from the moment they conceive about how they're going to get their kids into daycare. Again, our opposition is against the proposal to rezone. It's not against the development. We have a list of developments that we have considered appropriate for this land, and we hope that these are considered with a thoughtful reflection. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. These are what some people are saying. If I wanted to live in a heartless condo town, I would have bought here. I mean, we could all read between the lines that this wasn't a proposal for social housing. It was a proposal to sell the land to develop privately. So if we're going to grow to the size of Barrie, we need a hardwood hills. I would love this town if they could understand the greater visions of its citizens. These are just a few quotes that I picked up on my travels around town. And yes, if anybody has any more questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, wabicappeal@gmail.com. These are the key messages about things that we want to consider moving forward, and why we are adamant about protecting this open space, and why we are prepared to do anything to protect it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hansman. Eric, I see your hands up. Yeah,
Perfect.
ready?
Can you hear me at all, Your Honor?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm just not very technically inclined. There I am. And, whoops, I meant to do this first. Thank you, Your Honor. Can you see me at all?
Yeah.
And tell me when I'm sharing my screen. What is going wrong here? How am I doing?
That didn't work.
How about this?
That's better.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much. This is for the rezoning application, proposed zoning bylaw amendment Z2113 Wabeek Street from the District of Parry Sound Social Services Advisory Board. Thank you, Your Honor, and members of the council for allowing me to speak today. My name is Eric Hansman, and I am a resident of 22 Baycrest Drive. I am a biotechnologist by trade. I'm opposed to the planned development of the lot and the rezoning for the area for environmental and ecological reasons, economic reasons, and biosocial reasons. I'm going to deal with each one of them individually. I don't intend to take a long time talking with you today. I appreciate the comments of Ms. Pritchard, and I thank her for her contribution to this topic today. The negative effects of rezoning this particular piece of land and the development would be both long and short term, and the area would not be recoverable, save through extreme cost to the town, especially for its ecological and for the economic loss that it would sustain. And I'm aware that there's a lot of dollars and cents that can be racked up with the to the sale of the land after the rezoning has been done, and the possible development of the land into whatever, anything at all a private company could conceive of putting on these lots or these in this area. I think that the cost is much more than we would lose. Now, the legacy of Little League Park and Eric Bud Downing. These people are not Eric Bud Downing, nor are any of them. Most of them don't know about him, except for the fact that his name sits right on the front of that trophy that this gentleman here is holding over his head. This is from 2019. This was the last time that that trophy was presented to a ball team through the Parry Sound Minor Baseball Club. And it is named the Bud Eric Downing Trophy because it was donated by his family. And also in recognition for the contribution that the Downing family has really brought to the town of Parry Sound. And it starts right here. Bud built that backstop along with some other volunteers. And he put these fences together, including this dugout. This is what's left of the home field dugout. And I think that the barrel, if you can see my cursor, the barrel that's sitting there in that dugout, it may have last been emptied by Bud himself, because this property has seen nothing in the way of care, attention, development. That smashed fence right there, that's where a tree used to sit from where it hit. And that tree there that has smashed that fence onto the foul line, yeah, right in front of that scoreboard, that might still work if you were to hook it up. The dugouts on the home side are there, and as much as you see them. The lights that stand here and the park lights go all the way around. This is the view from behind the backstop in the parking lot. You can see right over here the first base or the first baseline dugouts for the home team. Over here on the third baseline is well, it's not a dugout anymore. The lights on the outfield are there for the most part. This one here in center right, you can see is gone. And the reason it's gone is because, well, it broke and fell to the ground where it lay, and it's still there, and it's been there for probably several years. This one here is pointed the other way because it's barely hanging on, and one day it will tumble to the ground, and anybody underneath it will most certainly not wish to be there. This is the infields, which were meticulously maintained by Bud. Now they are not. In fact, I don't know that any work has been done except maybe to smash down the left field foul line fence and to remove what was the dugouts for the community garden. The community garden marks one of the few assets of the park. And although it is small and limited, it goes almost to the left field wall or the fence and covers most of the left field line. It does inhibit use of the park as a ball diamond, but it doesn't inhibit the park from being used for other things, other features of the park area. And I'm just going to very quickly go to a map here and show you what I'm going to talk about so that we don't have to go back and forth too often. Why is it I can't get to there from here? Oh, I know what the problem is. Go here, and then go, where is it? Where's my cursor? Ah, there we are. Aha. So this is a map of Parry Sound. And this, have I passed it? Nope. Salt docks, trail, aha. This area here, if you can follow my cursor, is the parking lot. This is what I would call the northwest, and this is what I would call the northeast. I'm going to talk to both of them in a minute, but just so that we know what's going on. Here we are. This is in the north. This is in the northeast corner of the parking lot. This is the access here that takes you up through the back into the parking lot behind, I believe it's the Learning Center. This is the forest on the right-hand side of that. This is the right or center right field fence right over here. And this is what's behind it. This is, of course, this is the road, the access road that leads back to all the properties until you get to the corner. I forget the gentleman's name who owns it. I think his name's James. Anyway, he's at the very last entrance before you get, or the last house before you get to the entrance of the Jacqueline Apartments at 23 or 25 Prospect Street. The northeast angle of the park, and I wish I could bring these down, but I can't. We'll just look through here. This is, once again, the parking lot. You can see the right field line, foul line extending back, and that there's that area of brush between the houses and behind and the back of the fence. And this extends, if you follow my cursor here to the right, all the way to the road. Why this is important is because if you look at the map, these particular areas of forest as they extend into the larger property are access routes. Access routes for what? And the answer, if you look very carefully at the map, is, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, is biosphere. And this is part of the UNESCO clause that you're going to find is going to be part of our problem here in rezoning this area. The reverse side of the lot on the other side of the fence and right in the middle of the area that's being rezoned, this is basically a washout now. The fence and the infield or outfields and the grass and the trees that are high up on this particular lot have held the ground in place. And on the other side of the fence, where there is only the trees and no fill to put in for a nice flat outfield, the way the ball diamond was designed, the ground has been left in a sylvan state, which is beneficial. It's a mixed lot forest. You can see all kinds of different varieties of trees here. Unfortunately, the pictures don't show very well. They show quite a bit because they're taken in the fall, and you're not being blocked in by all the foliage. At the same time, you can't see the rich nature of the variety of the forest. I can tell you that there are oaks, red and white. I can tell you that there are maples, sugar maples, Canadian maples, and striped maples, which constitute the middle level of the bulk of the middle level of the forest. I can tell you that the ground is made up of Precambrian rock, Precambrian shield rock, and broken rock. I can tell you that on the ground is raw biosphere, the likes of which only a naturalist could truly appreciate or love. Now, ecosystems that exist in nature, and I'm just going to talk about this really briefly, are home ranges to something. Home range is a term used by a guy named William H. Burt in 1943. His work in extension to Audubon's work on home ranges and natural environments for wildlife. A home range is a place where living creatures live and move on a periodic basis. It's not necessarily a home site, but it's a place in which creatures live and move. People do this all the time. We have our homes and we have the places in our home range, places like we go get food at the grocery store. We go get material needs at supply stores. We get hardware needs at hardware stores. And we go visit our friends, and our friends have homes that are similar to our own. They have, couches, they have fridges, and they have running water and bathrooms, places to go, things that you need. And so, of course, animals have similar needs. They go to home ranges because they have familiar vegetation, right? They have sources of cover, material for nesting, food, the possibility of mates and mating possibilities, and other symbiotic animals that do things for us. For instance, some woodpeckers would come to this property because they're going to beat the heck out of some trees and get some grubs. Other animals would come there because the woodpeckers have beaten the heck out of the trees and put holes in them, so now they can move into them as nesting sites or as places where they might be able to secure food despite the fact that they're not woodpeckers. The best home ranges are low pressure environments, which is to say, you don't go, if you're a woodpecker, you don't go to a place where all the trees are made out of metal and they're surrounded by people all the time. You go to places where all the trees, there's a variety of standing dead trees or dead trees, or just trees that are nice and dying, so you can drill holes in them. Not a lot of people around, fewer predators, not as much need to rush around and grab food because there's lots there. It may be close to their residence, but it need not be at their residence as long as there's a way for them to get there. And that's where those two little passageways on the northeast and northwest, I'll call them that, the directions are a little long, where the road to the parking lot side is and where the road along the first base foul line sits. Those are going to be access points for things to get to and from, because as we know, nothing flies the way the crow flies except crows. Everything else jumps from cover spot to cover spot to cover spot, or crawls from cover spot to cover spot to cover spot. Because if they don't, they end up getting caught and they're doomed. We'll get to that. Now, one of the features on these lots, especially on the side beyond the foul line, the fences, are vernal pools. They're also called ephemeral pools, or if they're longer lasting, they call them vernal ponds. The pond is just any body of water where light can reach the bottom of it at all times. So it's a permanent standing body of water where light can reach the bottom in all places at all times. Otherwise, it's a lake. Anyway, these ephemeral ponds are vernal ponds. They're seasonal in nature generally. They come in after the spring thaw with the spring rains. They show up whenever it rains, and they leave water in pools and puddles all over the place. They exist in the region because of the rock formations and our symbiotic relationship with the natural flora of the region, specifically the deciduous trees. They drop the leaves. The leaves form like a liner in the bottom of the pool, and it keeps the water in, right? They fall down, the water comes in, the water pushes down and forms a seal between the water and the ground, and it keeps in there as it pushes up against things like tree limbs or whatever has fallen to the ground. The essential element here is in any basic ecosystem is water and water retention. Now, the features of these vernal pools, they're seasonal, of course. They form from the melting snow and the spring showers, and they last quite a long time. This year was very dry on this lot because with the moths, the gypsy moth infestation from the caterpillars that destroyed the forest canopy, it caused, first of all, not only did it dry up the water, but it caused all the medium level vegetation, the grasses especially, went absolutely nuts this year. And it stood 3-4 feet tall at the height of the devastation. The canopy being gone, the sunlight comes down to the ground sucks up the water, and using turgor pressure pushes or lengthens the blades of grass, and you end up with a slightly different ecosystem for one season or so every so often, which helps favor life close to the ground because it provides it with more cover. Generally, the canopy would eat up the sunlight, leaving less for the grass, and predator birds could move through this area and pick off things like mice, pick off things like squirrels. Insects would be more easily seen, and they would provide cover for other things like the peepers. Now, these pools are central to the life in the immediate area. If you walk through the bush, you don't just find puddles of water laying around everywhere. They're in special spots, and these vernal pools are actually a bigger deal. They're more diverse. They support diversity throughout the region, not just in this spot, but in the region, because other things will come to this area to use it as a home range. And with local diversity being so vast and important to maintaining ecological sustainability, what this means in short is that a strong ecosystem in town eliminates pests, and it contains localized infestation. People who have cockroaches that come home in the boxes that they have shipped to them from around the world, people who have pests that arrive in their homes, well, these pests are in islands. These homes become islands, and as they try and leave to go find and infest the community, they find that there are birds sitting outside, and those birds are relentless in eating whatever this new food supply might be, right? They keep things like raccoons in the forest where they would love to eat toads and frogs more than they want to eat your trash. They also keep things like woodpeckers from drilling holes in your wooden house, not because they think there's any bugs in your wooden house. They know when they're touching the wood that they can feel that, oh, there's no bug on the other side of that. But if I make a hole there, maybe bugs will start to work their way in, and they will. These infestations are epidemic in cities where they have given no thought to these wild spaces. They see this and they think, oh my, I can put 90 units on it. Oh my, I can be a hero and support low income, high density housing, or put another condo in there, or even a hotel or something really big. And now suddenly the woodpeckers have nothing to eat, so they start drilling into the wooden houses of the region. The raccoons have nowhere to live, the frogs, the toads are gone with the ephemeral pools. And so where do they go? They go looking for in your garbage can for their next meal. And they move wherever they have to go because you've shipped them out. The spring peeper, which you can see the habitat in the bottom left, used to be a really big deal in Parry Sound. You could hear these, and you see how small they are if you look at this picture on the right. These things are tiny little guys, but they're very important. They eat a lot of bugs. They make a beautiful song, and they used to be, in this region, extremely popular and populous. And they are not so anymore. You find them in places where these ephemeral pools still live, which is here on this lot. You also find them in the spring on top of the hill, Tower Hill, where the ephemeral pools up there still support them. And sometimes you find them down on Belvedere, where there's a few pools in back of there that sometimes still support a population. But the population does more than make music. It also feeds birds. It also kills bugs. Pardon me? I heard something.
I don't know where that came from, but Eric, you're way past 10 minutes, verging on 20, I believe, and
I'm going to be brief. If this wasn't important, I wouldn't waste your time. I'll go quickly. Basically, all these things, the life on this lot contributes to a larger food web, and missing components mess things up. Beyond the center field post, you'll find several pools dotting this property. Keeping this nature in Parry Sound is what keeps Parry Sound from having to deal with the same problems our southern cousins deal with. Things like coyotes, like this leg on the right next to my stick, they're eliminated through natural predation. Things like raccoons, like this skull next to my stick on the background, they're eliminated through natural predation. And on the left, when we have too many birds taking up too many nesting sites and getting into people's eaves troughs, we got this osprey. I think it could be a merlin too. I'm a little bit, it's a raptor, and it takes care of business like that. It keeps Parry Sound clean. Ecosystem starts with rocks, plants, and bugs. This is where they live. And why are they important? Because seasonal migration of species like this red-headed woodpecker on the left, and that little beauty on the right, the blue jay, this is where they live. And this is why this corridor, and I'm just going to go back briefly to that map again. This corridor is so important because this corridor extends, if we follow the map, from the Beatty property close to Georgian Bay all the way around, and you can follow it, green space, all the way down past all the way into town to Belvedere Hill. Right. That key is key for guys like him. This is, you know, the corridor is home range to threatened species like this boy here, which is the eastern fox snake. And if we go to the beach, we find a picture of this bad boy. Well, this bad boy's on Wabick Street. Well, how do you think he got there? Right? This, whoops, you know, everybody's looking to see that shot. And tourism is an economic reasons for opposing the rezoning. I'm almost done. Tourism is the big deal. These things like birds, they only go to home range areas. And supporting the trails, because people come from a long way to see nature in Parry Sound and area. Seeing nature in town is seeing nature where people shop. This red-headed woodpecker, and I show him again because he is actually, if you're an ornithologist or an amateur one like myself, you find something like that, and that's a big deal because that's rare around here. But people come looking for it. I walk up and down those trails 3 times a day, and I see people walking around with cameras that pay good money to stay in the Airbnbs, they eat in the restaurants, and they support tourism in Parry Sound. And the fitness trail brings in those dollars and brings in those people. People find nature in Parry Sound. People tell their friends about what they saw in Parry Sound, and their friends come to Parry Sound, and the situation repeats. And what are they doing while they're here? Well, hopefully, thank you for shopping local. Thank you for eating local. Now, if we think laterally, the ups and downs of neighborhood density, what this all supports, and you see this dead tree here, this dead tree is still supporting life and still providing opportunities in Parry Sound because this is where tourism comes from. They don't know that this tree is important. What they're looking for is the birds, they're looking for the wildlife, they're looking for the stuff, the northern experience. Well, the northern experience lives in a dead tree or eats a dead tree. And that being next to the trails is what makes it work. This is what makes the trails a viable thing. If you look closely at the lot behind you here, you'll see that this is all worn down. This has all been worn into place, and this tree here is going to crush down to the ground. It's going to extend into this spot here, another vernal pool, which will continue life in the region. Also, for reasons for not rezoning this park, food security. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. Food security is a reason we should all be thinking about globalization and food resource autonomy. Biosustainability is directly linked to food autonomy. If you're dependent on food from further and further and further away, you are not food secure. And the ability of individual people to create food within the region is still high because the town planners built the town that way, far apart, larger yards, smaller residences, places for people to put gardens. These gardens may not seem like much, but if there ever is a food security, and there is currently a food security issues going all over Canada and around the world, this is the sort of place where people are going to come looking for how are we going to do it at home. Famine is not always related to climate. In India, the areas that are most affected by drought all have one thing in common. They get a lot of rain. Food is something we all need, and filling up the green parks is a horrible idea. Populations are directly linked to biosustainability. Killing all the insects and taking them all out of town is a horrible idea because farming and cultivating food locally depends on insect populations for successful harvest. And community farming is beneficial for seed banking. Just because the current gardens are small doesn't mean that if they didn't need to, they couldn't triple in size in places like Mission Park, Williams Park, and Little League Park. The biosocial reasons for opposing rezoning. This does not add value to the community. It's the 90 units, or even if you put 120 of them in there in a condo that goes up to the sky, will not add the units you need because nobody, even currently in the present units in the condos that we see behind the salt dock or the North Salt dock, does not provide a lot of people living or paying rates in town. It's mostly absentee landlords and B&Bs. It doesn't alleviate housing pressure in Parry Sound. We have all these units that people can't afford already. By putting units that don't provide a tax base for the town in a place that's incredibly valuable for the town, not just for its real estate value, but for its biological value, is a fool's errand. and the town's character will be negatively affected. Having more and more density next to the water line is not helpful. If you look at Parry Sound from the air, we can see very clearly, and I apologize for having all of the green spaces in between the buildings here along the rail lines, they're there for a reason. It reduces noise, it generates space, provides people with expansion, like to breathe, families and communities. Higher density neighborhoods are unsustainable communities. They waste the negative, they have a negative impact on the area, because by filling up all the green spots, you have really nothing there for biosphere. People need biosphere. Moving to another planet is not possible without biosphere. You have to take it with you, or you die when you get there. So what does this mean? And this is my closing remark, and I thank you, Your Honor, for your patience and the patience of the members of the community and the council that have heard every one of my words, is look to the hinterland. Within the hinterland, we see the answer to why this is a problem, right? We're looking further inside the town. Places like here, big green open space where you can carve a subdivision out where my cursor is, or here, which would be a little harder to reach, but not unbelievable, next to this subdivision that's going in behind the Parry Sound Tennis Club, next to this subdivision that went in with a green space around it, so that migratory animals that follow these rail lines into town and that follow these trails and, lest we forget, the shores of Georgian Bay into town, can find their way through town, out the other side, and straight south, because migration, if you stop it anywhere, everything beyond it dies.
Are we good?
I'm good. Thank you so much for letting me speak, sir. I really appreciate you. I'm trying to get back to the meeting here. Aha, there I am. I really appreciate the kindness of the council for listening to my words and my sentiments. And I bear no grudge to the DSAB, but I feel quite strongly that the park itself is just too valuable to the town to let it go into any kind of a high or low density housing, and especially to leave it open to whatever anybody who can afford it might possibly do to it in the future. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. So, would anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Please identify yourself by name and give your address. I've had someone by the name of Sharir had their hand up for a while. I don't know whether I said that properly or not.
No, you did. You did say it right. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
It's not an easy name, and I appreciate you taking a shot at it. Thank you,
Right.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and thank you, council members. And I'm going to be very brief. I live at 74 Warbeck Street, which is a property that adjoins the proposed development area. And I just want to second everything that Alex and Eric said before me. I think they've pretty much done a terrific job of capturing all our concerns and expressing them very adequately. So I just have a couple of things that I'd like to say at this stage. My son goes to the daycare that's on that property, in fact. And I guess my first piece is I just want, for my own understanding and for everybody else that's on this call to understand, the plan that we looked at the beginning, that is a completely hypothetical plan. I mean, there's no requirement that is what the development will actually look like. I just want to be clear that my understanding on that is correct. That's not a specific plan. That's just an idea that it could look nothing like that. It could look like that, but that's not a specific or nothing we can hold anybody to, right?
It's a concept, but we're not supposed to really answer any questions at this meeting. We gather all that information and then you get a response back.
Fair enough. So in my understanding is that it's completely conceptual and it has no bearing on what it would actually end up looking like, the development. My second thought and my concern is really around, the head of the WSAB mentioned that they have challenges on the funding side, and I can appreciate that and I respect that, but I don't see how they are going into, what I can only describe as sort of a real estate arbitrage, where you purchase a piece of land and then you use your influence to get the zoning on that land changed, and then the value of that land goes up significantly. and then you sell it on further for a profit. I don't think that is what the mandate of the WSAB is. And that's my great concern, that once the value of that land changes and they perhaps sell it to a developer, none of the thoughts or ideas we've discussed today in terms of how it should look or what should happen, or low income housing, or the lovely design we looked at, none of that in fact translate into reality. So I'd just appreciate if council could take that into consideration as they go forward with considering this proposal. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, a hand that came up was Janet Patterson, I bet.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I will be brief too. I do live on a property abutting this property. And I want to say that I do not oppose the increase of affordable housing on this Wabick Street property at all, when it's designed and complementary to the existing neighborhood and streetscape. What I find most alarming is that this zoning amendment is being considered outside of changes to the official plan, when the zoning amendment does contradict the official plan in a number of areas. And I ask the council to undertake a thorough review of the official plan so that any kind of zoning changes can be done in a more comprehensive manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next hand up I see is Karen Walker. Karen, if you could just state your name, we know, but your address as well.
Yeah, yes. My name's Karen Walker. My husband and I live at 67 Wabick Street, right across the street from the daycare. Bob's dad built this house in 1950. It was one of the first houses on the block. So he has, and he helped us build that backstop that Eric was talking about. So we have deep roots, or Bob has deep roots anyway, in this community. We lived for 35 years. I taught biology in Thunder Bay, and among other things. And I would like to reaffirm that if we do not pay attention to what Eric was saying, even though it was kind of long, Eric, if we disregard these environmental concerns, and most of us didn't pay a lot of attention in our grade 9 or grade 10 science class, that it will be at our peril. It'll be at the town's peril. My big concern is the traffic. I'd like to challenge the traffic study that was done. When I looked at the report, one traffic study was done in 2015. My understanding at the time that it wasn't done on Wabick Street, it was done on Salt Dot Road, but I could be wrong. But in any case, only one, I think, of those buildings had been completed, of the 4 buildings that are going to be up down there. Now, the people down at the Salt Dock Road, when they'll take Wabick Street because they missed 2 train tracks, 2 stoplights, and those kids at the high school who don't want to move over for you when you want to turn left up there. So that's one issue of the 2015 one. A 2020 traffic study was done when we were on a provincial stay-at-home mandate in December, which is not a lot of heavy usage of traffic down here. I would like to see a traffic study done in midsummer. I noticed when I came home from a little walkabout last week that there's a little box on my telephone post outside. Now I'm thinking that it might be a traffic counter, but I don't really know. But it looks as if it's pointed. I don't even know how these traffic counters work, but it looks as if it's angled towards the old early years center, which is now part of the daycare complex. So would not get the traffic coming down Wood Street and turning left onto Wabick, or the people coming down Wabick and turning right to go up Wood Street. The Wood Street itself is another whole thing. Anyway, I would like a new traffic study done. I'd like it done in midsummer, so that it's more accurate than the traffic studies that we have. And I would like to also reaffirm everything that Alex said, everything that Eric said, and Shakir is absolutely true in that no one is bound to this 80 units. If you rezone this R3, we can have up to 180 units in there. That would be a disaster. I too have contacted a real estate agent about my property. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Someone is not muted at the moment. If they could, please. That's you. Okay, I have Ben Pritchard.
Good evening, Council. Ben Pritchard, 16 Wood Street. Try to be very brief and just focus on, I just want to speak for a second about government, democracy, and the beauty of living in a society where governmental decisions should be informed through public consultation. And I just wanted to point out, it dawned on me while I was watching tonight, all those speaking out in favor of the development tonight are doing so in a professional and employed capacity. I know all about paid advocacy, there's no judgment there, but it's very much worth noting that that all the proponents were drawing a check while they spoke in favor of this development. And you've heard lots from the public that is against this development, that is heartfelt and democracy matters, public input matters. The fact is, property owners do not always get to do what they want with their property. This is a fact of life, just as we don't allow waterfront lots to be carved up into hundreds of half-acre lots anymore. We can say no to this proposal too. It's okay to let the land use plan be what we want it to be. The public doesn't want this. Let's stick up for our beautiful town, and that's really all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there anyone else at this time? I've got someone, Nancy, down at, do you wish to say something? You could state your names and your address, please.
I am Nancy Harrison. This is my husband, Andre Harrison. We live at 53 Wabick Street.
We can hardly hear you. I can hardly hear you.
Sorry, 1 second. My name is Nancy. Is that better?
Not really. Do you have a micro or a earphones plugged into the unit at all, or something like that?
No, I don't. I just want to voice our opposition. I'm very concerned that we open the Pandora's box for extreme high density in the area. What's to stop people, for example, from the empty lot now on Wabick Street? Once we get a zoning rechange in that area, many different options could happen where apartment buildings and different things will change the look of our neighborhood forever. I don't know if you heard me.
I heard some of it, but it was really tough to hear, but I did hear what you had to say.
Definitely basing my opposition to the
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, I did get that for sure. Yeah. Okay, is there anyone else at this time that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? I'm trying to scroll between screens here just in case. Usually if someone puts their hand up, it automatically brings them over. I see, okay. Davidson?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm in opposition to this, obviously. I live in the neighborhood. I live on 12 Baycrest. We moved here 6 years ago. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and it's going to be completely gutted and changed by you guys doing this. It doesn't seem like there's anyone who wants this done other than the people who are getting paid to do it. My question for you is, are you guys taking into consideration the actual residents and voters who are here? And is this new project going to be residents of Parry Sound that are moved in there, or are they going to be bussed in from other areas?
We don't answer questions at this meeting. We take your questions and then you're given answers back. This is a public meeting for those that are in favor of something or opposed to it, to get their expression out there and to ask their questions. So This is the part of the public process in a zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you.
Okay. There, just so you know, there are staff taking the questions down so that the questions can be answered. Is there anyone else at this time that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Not seeing or hearing anyone at, okay. Colleen,
Hi.
welcome.
Hi, I'm Colleen.
Your address?
I appreciate what everybody has been saying tonight. And I guess for me, I live on Wabeck Street. I moved here from Huntsville, specifically because of what Parry Sound offers that Huntsville doesn't. And what Huntsville doesn't offer is any non-privatized space that you can enjoy. There's no access to the water. There's no just forested areas accessible in town. And that's what I came to love here. And I think at this time with COVID's made us rethink things, climate change has made us rethink things. And I think we have a unique opportunity in Parry Sound to be this example of smart infrastructure and forward-thinking development. And I think as a council, you have the opportunity to help us preserve what we have and help us be that visionary town. I think developments like this are important. I think the area that has been selected is convenient. But I don't think that I don't think strategically it places us in a position that shows much forward thinking. And I guess I just hope that you as a council I hope you're the people who are going to give us that long-term plan and put us on the map as something that isn't one of the towns up Highway 11. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Okay, Brando, your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Brandon Cormack. I live at 3 Prospect Street. I witnessed this summer the high density at the beach for probably the 3rd year in a row with the lack of infrastructure, parking, public bathrooms, and space. I just don't understand. There's absolutely no parks for kids to play at in this area. And I just think that, doubling the population in this area could severely hurt the tourism. But that's it. I appreciate everybody. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to speak.
Okay, all right. Who do we have here?
Al Bartlett.
Okay.
Yeah, Al Bartlett. I live at 2 Baycrest.
Okay.
I would like to add to the letter that I had earlier submitted. It is quite apparent that there exists very strong opposition with a multitude of good reasons amongst the existing property owners in the immediate area to the current proposed application for rezoning. This application for rezoning must be denied and turned down by council. The proposed change from a current designation of no development to potential R3 high density is beyond extreme. It's just wrong. As stated in my letter submitted, I find the proposal very upsetting, especially after the fact that it was less than a year ago that legal counsel informed me of the 01 zoning designation. No worries. So my wife and I decided to proceed and invest our future in the town of Parry Sound. A high-density community bound within a single dwelling community has the makings to increase an escalation of future societal problems. It doesn't make any sense for that sort of development. The town of Parry Sound advertises the gateway to the 30,000 island archipelago. Great pride in a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve that consists of over 40 endangered species at risk. They all use this coastline along here and this green space as their haven. Last winter, we had 2 bald eagles flying up and down this coastline on a daily basis. The developments of the condominiums over at the salt docks destroyed natural forest that had stood the test of time. Everything you hear about in the news these days is about the loss and change to our environment. Protect the natural environment, we're told. Preserve natural habitat for species at risk. Plant more trees to reduce carbon. Yet council should not be providing the ways to pave over a standing coniferous forest by rezoning this property. Natural forests and green spaces within the town limits of Parry Sound are limited. This area confined between Wabeek, Baycrest, and Prospect Street being one of the last ones. Yet there does exist many previously developed parcels of land that need revitalization and development. These vacant lands need to be developed and should be developed before any additional forest area considered to be cut down and paved over. I suggest council propose legislation to that idea. If you stand at the beginning of the waterfront walking trail at the salt docks, you see a big, large sign, the Georgian Bay Biosphere Reserve. The backdrop to the sign is the newly constructed styrofoam high-rise building within 100 feet of that sign. I ask all of you councillors to go and look at that and think about that vision. The Georgian Bay Biosphere with a high-rise building within 100 feet of it. Ask yourself, please, do you want to continue making these types of mistakes? Please listen to the people of the community and the concerns that they have addressed tonight and deny this rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? And now I see a hand, Alex's hand up, but Alex, you've already spoken, so.
Okay, I just wanted to add that we do have legislation, according to my understanding, that the official plan is in place to protect our open spaces, for which it clearly denominates that it's very important that we protect, and also our community nature and identity. So thank you, Al. I really appreciate your input.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up right now. I'm going to ask one more time. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay, I don't see or hear anyone. So thank you, everyone, for your input. Mr. Thompson, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
Your worship, we have received 35 letters in opposition to the proposed rezoning with the following key concerns. Proposed zoning density is too high, habitat loss of mature forest, ponds, and animals, destroying green space, sewer pumping station capacities. There are more suitable properties existing within the town. Traffic concerns, belief the traffic study is dated. The property could contain at-risk or endangered species. Concerns over ambiguity with the plan that's submitted. The plan doesn't align with the town's official plan. Concerns that the engineering and cost information isn't accurate. Compatibility with existing homes in the neighborhood. There were parking concerns, concerns over a singular access to the proposed development. concerns over drainage, concerns over lack of parking for visitors in the area, concerns over increase to emergency services, privacy and security, loss of the community garden, loss of play space for children, loss of the character of the neighborhood, light pollution, increased emissions, concerns over demographic disruption, proximity to the daycare, concerns over snow removal, prevention, potential for future expansion of the development, loss of access road behind Prospect Street. There were concerns over the height of the developments, requests for environmental study, concerns over there already being too much development in the area, concerns over the reduction of property values, concerns over low-income housing, significant impact on town services. There were petitions submitted in opposition as well, consisting of 134 signatures. We received no submissions in favor of the development, no written submissions in favor of the development. There were two other comments submitted, one from CP, and they believe that should the proposal receive approval, request that the recommended proximity guidelines be followed. We also received communication from Wasauksing First Nation requesting further information regarding nature and scope of the project, estimated duration and project timeline, mitigation plans for impact on local wildlife and species at risk. That is everything.
Okay, thank you. The public should contact staff or check with the town's website to see when this amendment will come back for a decision. Council at its discretion may approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If so, it must either circulate notice of passing of the bylaw or give notice in the local press. Objections to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk within 20 days from the date of such notice is given, which objections will be forwarded to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If an appeal is submitted and the appellant has not provided council with an oral or written submission before the passing of the bylaw, the Ontario Land Tribunal may choose to dismiss the appeal. Thank everyone for their presentations, and may I have a mover and seconder to declare the public meeting closed. Councillor Keith and Councillor Burden, we do now declare the public meeting closed. Anyone opposed to that? Nope, that's carried. Okay. May I have a mover and seconder for I'd like to thank everyone for their participation tonight. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 2nd? Councillor Bachman, Councillor Horn. The minutes of the regular council meeting held November 2nd, 2021 be approved as circulated. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of the minutes? Okay, that's carried. Questions of staff? No questions? Okay. Councillor Keith?
Yes, and Mr. Cairns, would he still be here, please, to advise me what's the status of the Cascade railing, please?
Yes, certainly through your worship, Councillor Keith. I might defer to Mr. Benaza, as he and I were both on site today, and I'll let him elaborate as to our progress.
Yes, through your worship, to give you an update. We did go out on site today. We have marked out locations for the foundation for the new railing. We also have, we've submitted locates. We'll be waiting on the locates to come in. As soon as they clear, we'll be starting the construction on the foundation, and then we will be talking with the contractor. The contractor has ordered the steel and start putting it together back at his shop starting next week, and we'll update you as things further go along.
Okay,
Thanks. Thank you.
okay. Any further questions, staff? No, okay, correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, there are just 2 items of correspondence. The first is from the Parry Sound Area Planning Board with a notice of an application for consent. It's under the number B40-2021 Hodgkiss, and the result would be an additional Deepwater Point water lot. The second item is from the Township of Seguin. The Township of Seguin is making application for a minister's zoning order, which in order to develop lands in the northwest portion of the municipality for the purposes of residential development. Seguin Township is inviting comments and feedback from the municipality to be sent by December 3rd. And that's the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Reports. We'll start with Councillor McCann.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and public. Just one meeting to report on at the Parry Sound Public Library. It's the only committee that I belong to there in which we are meeting personally. We met on the Wednesday morning, November 10th, and we had regular business, housekeeping to take care of, treasurer's report, CEO's report. Big thing was we approved our budget for 2022. A lot of discussion over the ownership of the building and the logistics and the difficulties as we look towards the future and what to do with the building and the fundings to provide this necessary maintenance. We've kind of been taking a bit of a look at what things might look like in the future from now as well. And we're exploring grant opportunities as we move forward. The kids portal is up and running. It's doing something. And our staff and Rita Orr, our CEO, continue to turn a lot of heads in the library industry with their creativity, their resourcefulness, moving ahead with the policies that we've established and the way we've been handling the whole COVID pandemic. As we said at the meeting, staff and Rita make it easy and make the board look good. So thank you to them. And that's it for my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Worship. Good evening, everyone. I've attended a couple of meetings at the airport where we continue to review proposals with respect to the runway. I want to thank and congratulate Stephanie Johnson, who we recently learned is leaving her post with the local newspaper. Stephanie's covered council for a number of years and did so in a professional manner. So I wish her good luck in all her future endeavors. I want to congratulate Mr. Cairns and Ms. McNamara. There have been a couple of rousing, well-attended Parry Sound Hockey Club tournaments at the BOCC these past 2 weekends. And I've heard from families and folks involved in organizing both of them that our staff did a great job in helping them out, particularly in light of the COVID safety plans and restrictions that are still part and parcel of our community. And finally, I want to wish those poor folks in BC's Lower Mainland all the best of luck in their struggles with Mother Nature.
Okay, thank you. You kind of got cut off there or whatever. That was it?
Where did I finish, Mr. Mayor?
Well, okay. The struggles in BC.
Yep, I'm finished. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On November 8th, I attended the Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce meeting, and just want to mention that their Shop Local campaign begins on November 18th. So please visit the website, and in conjunction with the DBA, looking forward to the Christmas season and shopping local in the town of Parry Sound. Support your small businesses. On November 10th, I attended the Committee of Adjustment meeting with the town of Parry Sound, and it was an application by the Near North School Board in regards to the super school and reducing the number of parking spots from 700 to 298. Basically, with the new planning formulas in terms of moving ahead with the school, if they were forced to have 700 parking spots, there would be no schools. So based on formulas for planning, they asked for the reduction to 298 spaces. That takes into account the number of students that would be driving, their age of those students that would be driving, the number of parking spots that would be assigned to them, plus the number of staff that would be working at the super school. So that was passed. So again, this was all in conjunction with the provincial policy statement for the request to change that particular aspect of the zoning. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of things to report on. On November 10th, I attended the rather abbreviated meeting of the Downtown Business Association. Unfortunately, at that meeting, we accepted the resignation of our executive administrator, Liz Bohm. Liz has been forced to step down because of a problem with her mother's health, and she just doesn't have time to look after her mother and do the job. So thanks, Liz, for your few months of service. The Girlfriends Weekend is on. It started yesterday. I haven't talked to anybody the last couple of days, but I know at the meeting last week they had 275 ladies registered. So there's still time to register. Any ladies are interested, just take a look at the DBA website. November 11th, attended the monthly meeting of the District Social Services Administration Board. We started reviewing the capital budget for 2022. It's been very well prepared by CFO Mitzi and her staff as usual. We'll continue to look at that at the next meeting. The new building in Powassan is nearly completed. We saw some photos and I think they're hoping to start moving people in there about the end of January. So congratulations on that big move. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I have only three things to report. Councillor Brad Horn already mentioned about the Committee of Adjustment, but I think it would be interesting to know that when that matter came to the meeting that night, the application actually was for 268 parking spaces. So with the support of the committee, it was increased to 298 spaces. And also with the idea, should there be some, one never knows in development plans in the future, the formula which had one staff per 0.23 space per parking space. So knowing your formula can be very helpful down the road when you're looking at parking spaces. The Remembrance Day service, I attended that. It certainly was warmer than some years, but still a little cool. I thought it had pretty good attendance given COVID. People seem to respect other people's places. The service was shorter, but it was great to see the support that was out there. And I remind people that I believe the drive-by Santa Claus Parade, I believe is November the 27th. So I hope that people will come on and drive by and see that. And my last thing for interest's sake or whatever is when the meeting started tonight at 5:30 for closed meeting, I had full battery Now I'm down to 15%. So I'm doing my best and hoping that I will be able to last the meeting. But just in case I'm suddenly no longer there, it's because the battery died. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. Councillor Bachman. Are you able to? I see your name. Are you able to tap in or no? I'll give you a moment. Okay, I guess she can't. Okay. So I will go on with mine. Council, staff, and public. November 4th in the morning, I attended an AMO pre-meeting for the afternoon MOU meeting. In the afternoon was the update of the fall economic statement that the government had released that particular day, which I think there's a lot of good news in there for the municipalities, which is good. And then the MOU with meeting with the province. November the 9th, I had a meeting with the Minister of Finance. November 10th, I was a panelist representing AMO on a housing session at the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association Conference. November 11th, as Councillor Keith mentioned, was the very scaled down Remembrance Day service or ceremony at Cenotaph and Market Square Park. Great turnout from the public, and I'd like to thank the Legion for hosting the event, and certainly the number of people that came out was absolutely fantastic, and everybody was good with the social distancing. November 11th, as was mentioned by Councillor Burden, was the Parry Sound District Social Services Board meeting, and he's covered that off quite well. And I would also like to wish Stephanie Johnson all the best in her future endeavors and thank her for the work that she did with the paper. She was a great reporter. Thank you. Okay, on with the meeting. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that council accept the bid from Croft Industrial Incorporated for a new dock system for the Wabano Beach boat launch in the amount of $43,920, including taxes, delivery, and installation. This being the only complete bid received that met all of the required specifications. Discussion, comments? Councillor Borneman.
Mr. Cairns, just wanted to, do we have any idea when this system will be installed? I'm just hoping that it'll be prior to May 24th of 2022.
So I'll sorry, through your worship, I'll defer to Mr. Bedaza, and he's been working on this directly. So.
Through your worship, yes, we actually put a specification in the tender that it must be completed and installed before May 24th weekend.
Good. Councillor Keith.
Yes, Mr. Cairns or Beneza, can you advise, is there some sort of pattern you're starting to observe in respect to tenders where it seems like we get somebody that, in this case, Crop Industries, one industry that fills out that tender completely as we're requesting, and other people just can't seem to complete an application form? Is there a problem here, or is there a pattern? Are we too complicated, or just people are in a rush? What's the scoop?
Certainly, I can take that through your worship. I have a feeling it has more to do with the availability of the products, and in particular this year, and I know it is perhaps becoming a bit of an old story. Material delivery and supply chain seems to be the biggest impact to a lot of the tenders recently. I know we spoke about new pickup trucks, and Chevrolet had told us, just as an example, we'd be a year because there are no chips for their trucks. So in some cases, the people are not able to obtain the proper materials. In this case, I think there was a material specification that wasn't able to be met. And I honestly, I don't know if that's because of the manufacturing process that some use. There were some incomplete submissions in this particular one, and one that was completely outside of the specifications. So I think there's also maybe not a huge desire for contractors in certain instances. These are large structures, in particular this one. So transporting them a long distance becomes very difficult. And perhaps that may have played into the lack of outside bidders.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? No. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No, no one's opposed. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith. The council accept the bid from Adams Brothers Construction for the repair of the fitness trail pedestrian bridge in the amount of $48,210, excluding taxes. This bid being the lowest of two bids received. Any discussion, comments? No? Okay. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No one's opposed. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and second by Councillor Burden, that upon the recommendation of the EMS Advisory Committee, the 2022 land ambulance operating budget will be approved with a 6.2% levy increase over the 2021 approved budget, in a total amount of $11,943,641.72, and that a land ambulance capital budget be approved in the amount of $640,000 to be funded from the EMS Capital Reserve Fund. Mr. Thompson, Chief Thompson, do you want to say a little bit about this budget?
Through your worship, the committee struggled extensively with the increase required to fund EMS. The report outlines a couple of reasons for that, as well as just additional costs. You'll notice the capital budget is higher than normal. The price of ambulances is up almost $30,000. We're talking 20% increases due to some of the reasons Mr. Kearns just talked about with regards to the global supply chains, things of that nature, as well as other reasons. And that's just for capital. The budget overall, the committee was adamant that they not cut staffing or boots on the ground. And to do that, we are borrowing from reserves this year to try to keep the levy lower than what would be required without doing that. So we're spreading the hit of the increase over 2 years as well. It also helps us with the province being able to catch up on their 50-50 funding. So that's a strategic move to be able to do. So those are some of the highlights. This is a significant increase. The committee members are all aware of that. They were unanimous in their request that we move this forward and not reduce services to lower this increase.
Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Thompson, what does this mean to the taxpayer of the town of Parry Sound in real dollars?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do not have that calculated right off my head. If you give me a second, I might be able to make some quick calculations, which Stephanie will not like. But on round figures, unless Stephanie is a lot faster at it than I am, it is going to be approximately it looks to me like a $50,000 increase to the Parry Sound budget of that. So that's the best I can do on a quick assessment in terms of exactly what it means to an individual Parry Sound taxpayer. I guess I look at this budget as a much more global approach in terms of the entire district. And the Parry Sound does pay a very small portion of this overall budget for the district, with Seguin and the Archipelago picking up significant amounts of that. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Harris for a second while I try to do some better calculations.
Through the mayor, $50,000 to the town's budget, all other things being equal, would be just under a 0.5% increase in taxes.
Yep.
All approximate.
Councillor Keith?
Mr. Thompson, so that I could clarify, with not decreasing the service, at the same time, would that mean then, with no decrease in the service to the public, that our aging population is going to continue to be served, as it seems the aging is occurring more all the time? Would I be correct there? And therefore our need and concern for health and safety is probably a priority we want to keep up at the top?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will answer that in a couple different ways, in that the committee is prioritizing service standards to the residents of the district of Parry Sound. Now, the demand for service is increasing at an incredible level as well. So ambulance calls do not simply go up each year on a 2% basis like a cost of living or anything else. Is that a result of our aging population? Could possibly be that that's part of it. I don't believe that there's one simple solution. I also believe that the public relies on the system significantly more than what they might have previously relied on the ambulance service for. There are other initiatives to try to reduce that reliance, such as community paramedicine, which is a fully funded provincial initiative so that we approach it in a manner to try to reduce that. However, the fact remains, call volume increases extensively every year, and that has been a trend for the entire time I've been here. Every year's chart is a significant increase. If I may, your Mayor, Stephanie doesn't like me doing things on the fly because I often get them wrong when I'm trying to do that math that I didn't have prepared before the meeting. So she has corrected me in suggesting that it's not a $50,000 touch to the Parry Sound taxpayer, but a $16,000 touch. So that's much less than the 0.5% that Mr. Harris mentioned.
Okay. All right. I see Councillor Backman has her hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry about that earlier, but I was muted by the host and was unable to speak during reports. But I just wanted to note that as per our budget, it was $110,000 per 1% in the tax when we were trying to figure out that calculation. So thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that figure is about 117,000 now. And so that's about a 0.14% of that. That's the impact.
Okay, thank you. It is an important service. And yeah. Any other questions, comments? No? Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No one's opposed. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn and second by Councillor McCann that upon the recommendation of the 2021 Facade Improvement Review Committee, Council approves a grant to the following businesses for the following. A, Legend Spirits Company, 7 Great North Road, $17,503.75. B, Jeans Unlimited, 68 James Street, $4,992.50. And C, Kamen Zuli, Duroko, 15 Seguin Street, $17,503.75. And the agreement letters to be drafted and executed by the successful applicants. Any questions or comments? No. Okay. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No? Okay, that's carried. I'd like to thank people for these companies for improving their facades. It is appreciated. Moved by Councillor Borneman and second by Councillor Keith. The council hereby establishes the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Exhibition Ad Hoc Advisory Committee with terms of reference attached to Schedule A. Any discussion? Councillor McCann.
Yes, perhaps Ms. Dyer could speak to this and tell us what's happening here.
Through your worship, you may recall that several weeks ago, I brought forward an application to the FedNor Tourism Relief Fund. So we've been going through the process. We've been invited to submit a phase 2 application for that funding, which is always a good sign. And that would contribute a significant amount of money, 75% approximately of the total budget required to completely refresh and redesign the exhibition at the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame, which as many of you know, has been in place and fairly static since the facility opened in 2003. I think it's time that we refresh it and give it the love that it deserves, so we can continue to attract tourists to our beautiful facility. So this committee would be established to provide advice and guidance as we move through the design process. If we are successful in obtaining this grant, the turnaround time for completing the project is quite quick. So we're trying to get organized and make sure that we're ready to hit the ground running by having a committee in place. And then we're quickly able to move into an RFP process in the new year.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Nope. Okay. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No one's opposed. That's carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann. That bylaw number 2021-7192 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a transfer payment agreement with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding funding under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream Local Government Intake be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried as well. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Nope, that's carried then. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2021-7193 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a customer supplier agreement with CDW Canada Corporation for procurement and licensing of Palo Alto PA 460 firewalls be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor Borneman that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Keith.
Yes, could Mr. Pengra please explain what is being requested here? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the long and the short of it is it's the procurement of 2 security appliances for passing internet traffic into and out of the town office and for the management of traffic between buildings. So from the town office to the VOCC to the Stocky Center and pretty well everything in between. These devices are used to take a look at what traffic's coming and going to determine if it's malicious or good, and basically filters out all the bad things that we don't want coming into our networks.
Councillor McCann.
I'm kind of laughing at myself, Mr. Pengra, because for a moment I thought we were talking about real firewall protection, you know, and then I thought, well, why isn't Mr. Thompson in on this deal? But yeah, you know, so the traffic that comes through these firewalls and the information that's caught, for those who understand a little bit about this, can you tell us how you recognize what traffic is good traffic and bad traffic, and the patterns that would sort of, you know, in layman's terms, recognize what happens? This is a concern for everyone these days with cyber protection. And just how are these systems able to work?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, without going into too much detail, because it's rather technical even for me, but the long and the short of it is, yeah, so much of what we traditionally have watched out for from a cybersecurity perspective has changed over, say, the last 5 to 10 years. And a large percentage of the traffic that we pass through, you know, every device that we have, whether it's a phone or a computer, it uses more and more is using high levels of encryption. And the problem with encryption is it's very difficult to peer into what packets are coming and going. And quite often, malicious things can hide within encryption as well. And traditional firewalling does not have the capability of peering in the encrypted packets. And so that's where modern firewalls have the capability to decrypt and, you know, check out for any malicious packages, payloads, and so forth, and, you know, kind of give a yay or a nay. There's quite a number of different features that I've summarized within the report that I think will probably provide a bit more of a perspective on what sort of protection we will be offered through this. And it's more than insurance. It's best practice, and it is these functions are industry standard.
I agree. It's a money well spent. As a sidebar, how is the consumer market keeping up with this kind of protection? Because, you know, for instance, I'm using a town laptop, but I'm not connected to any of your infrastructure. So the protection that we have on our own devices or people have on their home computers, this level of encryption and such that the hackers are developing, and you say things have changed and they'll change again in another 5 or 10 years, no doubt. How is the consumer market keeping up with that kind of protection?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a hard thing to answer, particularly without going into too much detail of our internal corporate networks, which I don't think any of us would really like to discuss in an open forum. Really, the long and the short of it is everyone needs to be taking precautions in cybersecurity at home, at work. They need to be aware of, you know, what common scams are in the marketplace. All too often we hear of loved ones, particularly the elderly, falling prey to these scams, be it phone scams or email scams. And I think it's providing some insight into what the modern scam is, how they're implemented, and how they're executed. Above and beyond that, having a good cyber hygiene practice, antivirus, just smart practices go a tremendously long way in maintaining a proper cybersecurity hygiene regimen. But there is no silver bullet. It's asking the questions. It's being suspicious of everything, everyone, and that's the unfortunate state of our world.
There's a new phrase then, cyber hygiene. I like it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments? No? Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Seeing none, it's carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Keith, second by Councillor Horn, that bylaw number 2021-7194 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for Z 21-057 McMurray and Gibson Street. Matt Ryan on behalf of 2713571 Ontario Incorporated be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? And that's carried as well. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
So then I guess Mr. Thompson will be speaking to this then this evening. So there were a lot of concerns from people living in the area, and the developer certainly has been very proactive in trying to address most of those concerns. Are we at a happy medium with this? Are the public concerns, have they been met with the changes that he's made as we consider voting on this tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Taylor and I have talked extensively about this specific proposal, and I can say that there are still public concerns. By no means has these changes, the removal of the one story, satisfying the parking, reduction to the 14 units, that has not alleviated all of the community concerns. They still have concerns about the fit of the building within the residential neighborhood of Gibson Street. Those have not been satisfied, and we still have concerns from the public specifically about some of those issues. Taylor and I have talked extensively. We do feel that this has met a compromise to bring forward to council with a positive recommendation, recognizing that it may not be the community's full opinion of the situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'll put it out there. I had somebody ask me last week if this had come back to council, and at that particular time it hadn't. So when I read my package on the weekend, it was there. Is this something that council wants to pass tonight, or they want to postpone it to the next meeting so the public, or I'll leave it up to you. Councilor McCann.
I would certainly put forth a motion to defer this or to put it on the next agenda. There's no fire at this point. Would the developer plan on putting the shovel in the ground in the spring at this point? I guess we don't know.
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have not been giving any specific timelines on when the developer is putting the shovel in the ground or anything of that nature. I guess I just would request, is there an expectation of staff to do something if this is deferred? Or because we don't have anything else to bring back to you?
Well, then I'm going to withdraw that motion, because I think for the most part, I believe the public's been in tune with this. And as Mr. Thompson has suggested, there's nothing else that they can bring back. So we might just be delaying something we don't need to.
Okay, Councillor Borneman.
Well, yeah, we're never going to make everyone happy, but I think in some respects it's incumbent upon us to allow people to voice their opinion. I was about to support the motion to postpone this to our next meeting, and I agree with Chief Thompson that there is nothing more for staff to do. It's only to allow for public input.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bachman. Councillor Bachman, I see you have your hand up. Okay.
Can you hear me, Mr. McGarvey?
Yeah, there's a bit of an echo, but I can hear you.
Yes, so just in regards to the past presentation, I guess my question is to Mr. Thompson. If I recall, Mr. Kazmani did mention that they would be reviewing their drawings. Now, has any of that been done, or was there any discussion with them at that time or since?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the amended drawing is included on page 3 of the report. At the top of that page, it's a comparison to the one that's on the bottom of page 2, which was what was presented previously. So you can see from the revised drawing, it does not contain the commercial component anymore. It's been reduced to 4 stories rather than 5. There has been changes to the finishes that they have been proposing, and you will note that in the report, there is a recommendation from staff that there be, further information on that provided through the site plan process to ensure that they follow through on their ideals of attempting to match the architecture in the area when they proceed through. I believe it was, pardon my lack of really understanding planner language. It was a heritage report, I believe, that was to be submitted with the proposal as it moves forward to be able to assess those features to make sure that they do match the community. So there's a number of those types of things in the report that we'll be following through on.
Okay, so then just as a follow-up and to allude to Councillor McCann and Councillor Borneman's comments due to the changes, I think it would be prudent to allow public to comment on that. I would support that motion.
Chief Thompson.
I just want to reinforce that maybe I haven't been clear. The public has commented on this new proposal. And I guess that was the point I was trying to make at the beginning, that they have not been completely satisfied yet with those adjustments. Just wanting to make sure that there's a clear understanding of what's being proposed here by staff is what we believe is a compromise. The public has commented that they are not entirely satisfied as of yet, but we are not going to have anything to bring back that's any different.
Councillor Horn.
I just don't see any clear justification of why we would delay this at this point. Nothing's going to change in 2 weeks' time in terms of any new information. So,
Councillor McCann.
Yeah, so on page 6, the artist's drawing of the building, is that realistic? Is that what we're going to see in the finished product? That's not a bad looking building. I kind of like it. Is that the product the finished product we're going to see?
I'm sorry, Mr.
like
Mayor,
picture-
through you, I don't see the drawing on page 6. I see it on page 3 of the report, so I'm not quite sure.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the package. Now I lost it. Well, just in terms of the background information, everything that's been presented, the look and feel of the building, we can expect that that's the finished product then.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what's on page 3, artist rendition, is what's expected to be produced.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
We're good? All right, anything further? No? Okay, anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Okay, I don't see anyone in opposition, so that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor McCann that bylaw number 2021-7195 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for Z19/08, 19 Miller Street, Fad Architect Incorporated on behalf of Kesmani be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor McCann that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw then? No, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor Borneman that bylaw number 2021-7196 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for 9 and 11 Bay Street, Fad Architect Incorporated on behalf of 30,000 Island Cruise Lines be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Burden and seconded by Councillor Borneman that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Yes, just looking for someone, perhaps Mr. Thompson, then to speak to what's happening here with this one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is an application to propose and remove a holding symbol for a proposed restaurant on the waterfront property at the 30,000 Island Cruise property. The holding symbol is in place due to flood restrictions in that area, and the reports that have been provided with this application are of such a nature that staff are comfortable with the removal of that H to allow for this development to move forward. It would be for a restaurant on that site.
Okay, so that's fine, and certainly the zoning is certainly in place for this kind of business as well, obviously.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the intention of what the vision is for the waterfront, is the inclusion of this type of development. So this is quite an exciting application in that it's an implementation of the waterfront vision.
It looks great. Thank you.
Anything further from anyone? Seeing no one. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Nope, that's carried then. Moved by Councillor Backman and seconded by Councillor McCann that bylaw number 2021-7197, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? Yep, that's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Backman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Nope, that's carried. Okay, so prior to adjourning, I'd also like to mention right now that nominations are now open for the 2021 Order of Parry Sound. All residents and contributors to the town of Parry Sound are eligible for the Order of Parry Sound, our community's highest honor for achievement awarded annually to someone who has made a difference in our community. The motto for the Order of Parry Sound is "They desire a better community." Recipients since the Order of Parry Sound started in 2001 have enriched the lives of others in our community. Complete and submit a hard copy or email the nomination form and supporting documentation in confidence by Wednesday, December the 15th at 4 p.m. Nominations are kept confidential. Some restrictions apply. Pick up a nomination form and details at on the town's website or at the municipal office reception desk. The 2021 order will be awarded in January of 2022. Date and location to be determined. So again, complete and submit the hard copy or email for the nomination form supporting documentation in confidence by Wednesday, December the 15th at 4 p.m. And the forms are online or at the office here. So regarding the next council meeting, the next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, December the 7th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held via Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Ecological listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. And remember, November 27th at 4 p.m., the Santa Claus Parade. It is a drive-by parade again this year in the Parry Sound Mall parking lot. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.